Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Chaotic Tavern. I'm your host, Dan, and welcome to my first ever RPG video. For those who don't know, I am a huge nerd and I absolutely love TTRPGs. D&D, Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu. I love it all and I've always wanted to cover this kind of stuff in a video or two. However, because of the strange arcane voodoo that YouTube runs off of, diversifying your content on one channel is a surefire way to make sure Mr. Algorithm never texts you back and pretends to not know you at parties. So, here we are on this new second channel. But enough about our AdSense overlords, we got a cringe-ass RPG horror story to talk about. If you've ever been to a community college, it doesn't take long to find out it's just a daycare for broke adults with questionable social skills. As someone who's studied neckbeards from an uncomfortably close distance, I can relate to today's story. This tale centers around a player who just can't understand why he keeps getting removed from RPG groups. Then he meets OP and, well, let me just say, if you've ever played a game with a narcissist, this is gonna sound real familiar to you. Today's story, player won't let disagreements go, plays victim, and tries to hold ethical high ground. TLDR. Player can't accept his actions have consequences, and that it's his fault for upsetting people. Harasses others, kicked out for refusing to drop it. So for background, my old DM that introduced me to D&D reached out to me, and we caught up. And he tells me he's running other TTRPGs now over Discord if I want to join. It's been a hot minute since I've played anything, let alone as a player, so I joined his Avatar Last Airbender game. Here's our players. GM, my buddy. Most patient man I've ever talked to, hands down. Busy IRL. Me, playing a weapons expert. Not super important, but it does play into things a bit. Firebender, our star of the show, playing a firebender, obviously. The rest of the group is irrelevant to the story at large, so I'll leave them out. So the game has been going just fine, no issues at all. In fact, Firebender is a great character and plays well into situations. I have absolutely no complaints about him in the slightest. About halfway through our journey, he pipes up in chat saying he needs someone to talk to, and I was the only one on, so I hop into call. I'll leave out a ton of stuff because it was really personal, and honestly, I did feel myself start to like this guy through it, and I wanted to help him vent. But the highlights are important. He's constantly being kicked out of groups due to conflicts. Conflicts arise because he's autistic, likely Asperger's, explained below. He's sad because he really loves TTRPGs. He's a logic first, emotions never type guy. So, just for example, he'd say something and without warning or talking to him, people would yell at him, cuss at him, and kick him out, sometimes without a chance to defend himself. One even telling him that they're sad that people have autism and wished they'd die. So while I'm not saying he didn't cause any issues, it's clear it's people who take things personal. And he said he's talked to therapists who agreed that most of those he didn't even do anything wrong. And I empathize with him because a couple of my friends have autism, as does my wife. So where does this lead? Okay, for those who don't know, if you ever meet anyone who acts like this, turn the fuck away and start running. There's an old expression that if every person you meet is an asshole, chances are the asshole is you. So when someone starts telling you that they've been kicked from countless groups and circles, believe them. Then turn tail and walk in a calm, coordinated fashion as far away as humanly possible, because if you don't, trust me, you'll have to remove them from your life at some point, usually after the first time you dare to disagree with them about something. Then, you get to have the joy of this person telling everyone what a piece of garbage you are. Sorry, I'm only a little traumatized. Last week, we ended the session with talks of advancing our character's powers and plot. When Firebender said he wants to go into combustion bending, that was fine. He also wanted to go into chi-blocking martial arts, which, odd combo, but okay. And then he also wanted to use the bow, which, at this point, he starts seemingly overinflated in my opinion. Like, from my perspective, especially as the only non-bender who uses weapons, you want to not only have access to the most powerful long-ranged bending technique, a close-quarters paralyzing technique, and a bow? Seemed a bit much. And for what reason? It didn't seem to make sense with who he had made his character as so far. Now, all of that being said, I will never tell another player to not do something. but both me and GM kept trying to tell him that it would be better for him to focus on one of those things and be great at them, rather than be subpar in all of them. Mind you, GM made it crystal clear many times that he could do it and would not be prohibited, but he wanted to explain that it did feel to go against the spirit of the game to want to do so many things. He didn't take this well. The arguments were circular and lasted for about 2 hours. It was like he couldn't accept that we were okay with him doing it, even if we disagreed. He seemed obsessed with making sure we agreed with him that it was not OP, overreaching, or illogical, not realizing that was never what we were trying to say. I explained it like, you're a paladin who wants to go into a subclass that focuses on long-ranged smite, and now you want to cross-class into a ranger. It's not that you can't, but it's a bit absurd. Puffin Forest reference. Based. Personally, I had no issue with any one thing. Firebending and bow? Sounds awesome. Firebending and close quarters martial arts stuff? Sounds awesome. Combustion bending? Sounds lethal, but all three just seems like he's diluting his character. He did not take any of this at all, just reiterating that it's not OP or overreaching. That's a fact. Over and over and over. And at some point, I told him and GM that I was done with the conversation and that I'm not going to stop him from doing whatever he wants. Later that night, he's in my DMs hitting me with wall after wall after wall of why he's right and why we're wrong and that he should be allowed to do these things because of... you get it. I start telling him off I don't really want this conversation, but I humor him a bit, and I tried to make it clear that just because I don't like his idea doesn't mean he has to listen to me, that I don't dislike him. His response is to tell me that you guys are misrepresenting me and my character, as in his personal character, not his character in-game. I try to tell him that we aren't, I'm just replying to what he's typing. He says I'm not bothering asking tons of follow-up questions to clarify, and I try to explain to him that that's not a normal thing to do as a neurotypical, that it's his responsibility to put out what he wants us to see, and his response is to say that means I'm poor of character. I stop the conversation and tell him I'm not okay with him talking to me like that, and if he wants to continue talking to me, he will refrain from insulting me further. You're a hypocrite. I blocked him immediately and vented at my friends cause I didn't want to explode on him. I later unblocked him and explained I'll not be talking to him for the next week because I need time, but he needs to consider not doing what he did to people. So, OP, that part where you say later I unblocked him, rookie mistake, kid, rookie mistake. If you're listening to this, OP, let me give you a quick little story of my own. I knew someone in college who was just like this, to a T. And believe me, the second you unblock that person after they cross your boundaries, that person will do a victory lap and tell themselves that they were right. Even if you do it just to disagree with them. By allowing them to keep having access to you, all you're doing is reinforcing their delusional idea that they're smarter and better than you. You can't fix this, and honestly, neither can anyone else. You mentioned earlier he's in therapy and that his therapist just can't understand why people treat him this way. Well, now you know why Dr. Clueless can't solve the problem. It's because Firebender here is the main character, and he's sure as hell not about to let anyone know that he's 3 little gremlins in a man costume. Come today, we get in late, GM lost someone, and we clear the air. Kinda. He still hasn't let it go, and he's constantly trying to start the conversation again. We tell him, stop, we are done with this argument. We never said you can't, we all want to play with you, but we can't if you can't let this go. And I add on that I didn't think negatively about him until he followed me to my DMs and harassed me, but I was willing to forgive and forget. He says he owes no one an apology because he can't control if we get mad at his words, which pisses me off, but I stay quiet to keep the peace. But as soon as we all leave call, he's telling GM I'm a bad person for insinuating he harassed me because Oxford Dictionary describes harassment as, I don't care what the dictionary said. I said twice I don't want to have this conversation and you ad hominem me. That counts. And so forth, and so GM tells him that he's gone. Kicks him from the group and will be open to debating on bringing him back tomorrow. Not even 5 minutes later, he's back in my DMs telling me that GM is a horrible person for kicking him and going back on his word. And I tell him to, essentially, fuck off. that he is the cause of the problem and is the problem. That the fact he can't let any of this go and act normal, that he can't seem to act with any level of empathy for his fellow man, and can't seem to mentally grow enough to take responsibility for when he's in the wrong. The words below are paraphrased, cause I missed half of his words. He types like 80 words a second. And I was done with him, and I deleted the chat. Firebender. I'm not wrong, you're the wrong ones here. You realize this mentality is why you'll never find a group to play with, right? No, I can't find games because you're all horrible people and have no ethical high ground. Okay, sure, whatever you say, lol. Now you're laughing at me. You're a hypocrite and... I'll be honest, I faded and mentally forgot half the shit he said in this argument. You're right, I am, because you've lost any right to respect from me. But believe whatever you want, if it makes you feel better about being an unlikable person. Bye. Then I blocked him and left to go vent and be pissed for a bit. I'm now here, typing this as the last remnants of that vent, and now I'm seeing these events as downright funny now. But if you're out there, Firebender, if you see this story, I genuinely hope for the best for you. I hope you eventually learn you aren't always right, and not everything is a logical battle. I hope you learn to let things go, and I hope you learn to stop thinking that you aren't at fault for upsetting people with your actions. Because otherwise, life is going to be sad, lonely, and harsh to you, and despite what happened between us, I would never wish that on you. OP, congratulations on removing this tick from your circle and standing firm on the decision to do so. People like this are genuinely a parasite that will latch onto people, and they won't let go until forced to do so. Sadly, I doubt Firebender is ever going to learn to grow and change from any of this. The guy I knew in college sure as hell hasn't, and that was a literal decade ago. God, I'm old. But to the people who are watching this, learn from OP and his GM's mistakes here. The moment you tell someone you're done with a conversation like this, and they decide that you aren't, that's the green light to root that person out of your life like the weed they are. You're not obligated or qualified to deal with the whole host of tomfuckery they've got going on with that head of theirs. The sooner you learn to recognize this kind of behavior and learn to avoid it, the better. And the more you describe Firebender, the easier time I have believing this story is real, because honestly, I could have written this story beat for beat with my own experiences with this kind of person. But in any case, what do you all think? Were OP and his DM too impatient with Firebender, or am I right that he deserved to be kicked from the group and down a flight of stairs in Minecraft? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like and consider subscribing for more content. A huge shout out to my backers on Patreon. You guys are the best, and I couldn't live without ya. And if you want to see more of my other content, the link to the main channel is in the description. I'll see you all for another round in the Chaotic Tavern.